I'm afraid I glanced away for a moment. Did we see the all clear to go?
I think we did, Your Honor.
Okay. Could somebody tell me what the all lost time is, please?
You know, Your Honor, I'm not quite sure. Seems like we'll get an update when they have it, but we're not sure yet.
Okay, we'll update all lost time. Okay. But I take it we are cleared to start.
Yes, Your Honor.
This is the case of the estate of Genesis Petrillo versus Peony Estates et al. Am I in the right courtroom?
You are.
It's always a good start if I'm in the right courtroom. There's a civil matter involving either battery or negligence. Is the plaintiff ready to proceed? And do you have any preliminary matters?
Yes, Your Honor. Permission to make appearances?
Absolutely.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Elizabeth Grant. I'm joined today by my co-counsel, Azam John Muhammad.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Mr. John Muhammad.
And Meredith Fenyo.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
Today, we represent the estate of Genesis Petrillo, and after opposing counsel has the opportunity to introduce themselves, we do have a couple housekeeping matters we'd like to go through with the court.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much. Counsel for the defense, why don't you enter your appearances?
Yes, and thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. My name is Dylan Horowitz. I'm joined by my co-counsel, Michael Wilson.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
And Adrian Huntley.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
We represent the defendant in today's case, Harper Martini.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Martini, how are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. Okay, back to preliminary matters, I guess. Counsel for plaintiff, go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. First, we'd like to invoke Midland's Rules of Evidence 603 and 615, which constructively swear in and sequester all of the witnesses in today's case, except for party representatives.
And does the plaintiff have a party representative?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, and my assumption is Ms. Martini is the defense party representative. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so ordered. Go ahead. Next.
Next, Your Honor, yes. We'd like the court to take note of stipulation 3, which states that exhibits 1 through 10 are already in evidence in today's case and may be referenced by either party during opening statements.
Sure. Okay, no problem. Go ahead.
Next, Your Honor, we'd like the court to note that originally plaintiff brought 2 claims, a battery claim against Harper Martini and a negligence per se claim against Peony Estates. We'd like the court to note that that second claim of negligence per se was dismissed during summary judgment, and today we're solely pursuing the battery claim against Ms. Martini.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Last, Your Honor, we'd just like to ask that if for some point during today's trial you're not able to see or hear any of us, please feel free to interrupt us and let us know.
I shall indeed. We'll deal
Thank
with
you, Your Honor.
We'll deal with the technology as best we can. It's worked so far.
Hopefully it continues to work, Your Honor.
Knock on wood. Yes, okay.
With that, Your Honor, plaintiff is ready to proceed to opening statements.
Okay, marvelous. How about counsel for the defense? Do you have any preliminary matters?
Yeah, just a couple of quick things, Your Honor. First, since it's our first time in your courtroom, we'd just like to know about your preferences for screen sharing. Would you like us to ask permission before sharing exhibits, or should we just announce that we're doing it for the record?
Just note for the record, the unusual part of Zoom is you have to do it publicly before it's admitted. Not a problem. Just note for the record you're sharing your screen and what you're sharing.
Yes, Your Honor. And I would just like to bring to your attention that due to space constraints, our counsel will be seated during speeches and examinations.
Not a problem.
And with that, the defense is ready as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I just saw a note that the all lost time is 2:48. Timekeepers, please take note and help keep us on track. I think we're ready to begin. Is counsel for the plaintiff ready to begin their opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor. Permission to proceed?
Have at it.
Thank you. She killed for control. Harper Martini is pacing. She's in her office, at a winery she owns called Peony Estates. She's pacing because it's June 7th. Because tomorrow, her daughter is getting married to a man named Genesis Petrillo. You'll learn that Harper Martini, she's been trying to stop this wedding for months. First, she tried to talk her daughter out of the wedding, but it didn't work. So she threatened Mr. Petrillo directly, but it didn't work. So she offered Mr. Petrillo $300,000 to walk away, but it didn't work. And now she's out of time. So she takes the weapon available to her, pesticides. She walks out of her office, sprays those pesticides into a bottle of wine, and gives that wine as a gift to Mr. Petrillo on the day before his wedding. An act of anger, desperation, of control. She killed for control. Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Grant, and I and my co-counsel today, we represent the estate of Genesis Petrillo. We're here today because in the hours after Mr. Petrillo drank that wine, he passed away. And today, his estate, it's suing the defendant, Harper Martini, for battery. In order for you to find the defendant liable for battery, we have to prove to you the defendant poisoned Mr. Petrillo. She did so intentionally. And that when she did, she caused Mr. Petrillo harm. Now, today's case isn't criminal. We don't have to prove those three things to you beyond a reasonable doubt. No. Today's case is civil, and we have to prove them to you by what's called a preponderance of the evidence. And members of the jury, that just means more likely than not. More likely than not, did the defendant poison Genesis Petrillo? That's the question you're here to answer today. So how do we start to answer that question? Well, before today's trial, both parties admitted Genesis Petrillo's death certificate. So it's undisputed that Mr. Petrillo's official cause of death was pesticide poisoning. Pesticides will show you the defendant used at Peony Estates. And it's undisputed that the most likely source of that pesticide was pesticide contaminated wine. The wine will show you the defendant gave to Mr. Petrillo. Today, you'll learn that the defendant and Mr. Petrillo, they didn't get along. You'll hear from Mr. Petrillo's close friend, Angel Rodriguez, who'll tell you that the very day Genesis Petrillo was poisoned, the defendant threatened to kill him. The defendant was seen with the same type of pesticides later found in Mr. Petrillo's bloodstream, and the defendant somehow knew that Mr. Petrillo had been poisoned before anyone told her. And then you'll hear what happened with that bottle of wine. Wedding caterer Sam Arnold will tell you the defendant set aside a very specific bottle of wine for Mr. Petrillo, and when she did, she left it with a very specific instruction. Genesis Petrillo alone was to drink it. Then you'll hear what happened after Mr. Petrillo did drink that wine. Dr. Jim and Kwan will tell you that after Mr. Petrillo was rushed to the hospital, he passed away. She'll tell you that Genesis Petrillo died from pesticide poisoning. A poisoning we'll prove to you today was the intentional act of the defendant. Members of the jury, by the end of today's case, we'll show you that she killed for control. And that's why, after you've seen all of the evidence, heard all of the testimony, we'll ask you to find the defendant liable for battery. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Opening statement for the defense, Your Honor.
You bet. We're just going to take a little break between each element, so to make sure that the judges have the opportunity to fill out their scores.
Of course, take your time.
You bet. Okay. Counsel for the defense, you ready?
Yes, Your Honor. Opposing counsel, members of the jury. This was a poisoning, but it wasn't pesticides. Harper Martini is like any mother, protective over the one she loves, especially her only daughter, Casey. But Harper isn't perfect. When Genesis, Casey's fiance, came into their lives, of course, Harper was skeptical. Like any parent, she wanted her child to find the perfect partner. So yes, as Miss Grant described, things could be tense, arguments were had, but they came from a place of love. And that's why on the night of the rehearsal dinner, Miss Martini tried to make amends. You'll learn that she gathered everyone's attention to the front of the room because she wanted everyone to know that the young couple had her support. And she gave Genesis a bottle of Cara wine. Members of the jury, June 7th was like any rehearsal dinner, a celebration. And like any groom-to-be, Mr. Petrillo celebrated with some drinks. You'll learn about how he ordered tequila, how he drank champagne, how he drank from his flask, how he drank that entire bottle of Cara wine. And you'll learn about how he became sick, how he was nauseous, vomiting, and he needed to go to the hospital. When he was eventually rushed into the ER, he was showing signs of alcohol poisoning. And he slipped into a coma and passed away. Members of the jury, what happened early on the morning of June 8th was a tragic poisoning, but it wasn't pesticides. Now, in today's case, the plaintiff has the burden of proof. That means they have to prove to you the elements of civil battery, that Miss Martini poisoned the Cara wine with pesticides, that she intended to do so, and that drinking that wine was the direct and proximate cause of Genesis Petrillo's death. And they have to prove all that to you by a preponderance of the evidence, meaning that their explanation has to be more likely than not. But members of the jury, the plaintiff will fail to meet that burden today because while this was a poisoning, it wasn't pesticides. And you don't just have to take my word for it, because we'll begin today by calling Miss Austin Lewis to the stand, the head winemaker at Harper Martini's Winery. The plaintiff will want you to believe that a drop of pesticides can kill, but the head winemaker will tell you that's not quite right. Instead, Ms. Lewis will describe that actually pesticides can safely be in wine. And I want you to remember that because we'll next hear from Dr. Renee Cannon, an expert in toxicology. Dr. Cannon reviewed the treating physician's materials, and she'll tell you about alcohol poisoning, an alternative explanation for Genesis Petrillo's death that the plaintiff overlooked. Finally, we'll feel for Ms. Harper Martini herself today. Ms. Martini will be the first to tell you that she wasn't perfect, that things between her and Genesis could have been better, but the last person she would ever want to hurt is Casey. Ms. Martini will also describe that she saw Mr. Petrillo drinking heavily on the night of June 7th, just hours before he passed away. Members of the jury, what happened early on the morning of June 8th was a tragedy, But we have to consider all of the facts, look at all of the evidence, because while it was a poisoning, it wasn't pesticides. And that's why, at the end of today's trial, my co-counsel, Mr. Adrian Huntley, will come before you and ask you find Harper Martini not liable.
Thank you. One moment, please. Okay, does the plaintiff have any witnesses to call here today?
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Angel Rodriguez.
Angel Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez, you've been previously sworn. I want you to stay centered on your camera there, and I want you to keep your voice up so everybody in the Zoom world can hear what you have to say. Thank you very much. Proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Rodriguez. Could you tell the court a bit about why you're here today?
I'm here for Genesis. He was my best friend, and he died 2 years ago on his wedding day.
How did you know Mr. Petrillo?
Genesis and his fiancée, Casey, we were all really close. They had asked me to be their maid of honor, but instead, I'm the one that took Genesis to the hospital the night he died.
Ms. Rodriguez, it's important that the jury understand the circumstances around Mr. Petrillo's death. Do you remember the night of June 7th, 2019?
Of course. It was their rehearsal dinner, so we were all at Peony Estates for the weekend. Their wedding was the next day, so that night was supposed to be informal, fun.
Were you with Mr. Petrillo that night?
I was. I remember thinking the night started out fine. The guests got there, that there was dinner and dancing, everyone was hanging out. It felt exciting at first.
Did you see Mr. Petrillo drink anything that night?
There was a bottle of wine. Casey's mom gave Genesis a bottle of wine, and I saw him drink from it.
What happened next?
It was maybe an hour later, and Genesis seemed, I don't know, disoriented. He was slurring his words and stumbling, and pretty soon he was a mess, so I tried to take him up to his room.
How was Mr. Petrillo behaving at that point?
He was practically unconscious. He started throwing up, and I was panicking. I just kept trying to get him to drink water, but he couldn't seem to keep it down, and so then I went to go get help, but he passed out on the floor.
What did you do?
I called 911. I didn't know what else to do.
Was there an ambulance?
There was, and I went in it with Genesis. I remember his eyes were glazed over. I couldn't get him to look at me. I held his hand. I was so scared.
Ms. Rodriguez, what happened when you got to the hospital?
I went to the waiting room for hours after they admitted him. I tried to call his family, but no one answered. And eventually—
Objection, Your Honor. To the statement that she called his family and no one answered, to relevance.
Ms. Grant,
Response.
what say you there?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, the relevance of Ms. Rodriguez making calls and no one answering, her not communicating with anyone, is us laying foundation. If I may make an offer of proof.
Sure.
Ms. Rodriguez will later testify that she ran into the defendant the following morning, and before Ms. Rodriguez could communicate to the defendant or anyone else, the defendant mentioned that Genesis Petrillo had been poisoned. This is evidence that no one else, no one that Ms. Rodriguez called, could have possibly alerted the defendant to that fact, and demonstrates that the defendant poisoned Mr. Petrillo in today's case.
Based on your proffer, I'm going to overrule the objection and allow you to proceed. You better get there, though.
Yes, Your Honor. What happened next, Ms. Rodriguez?
I learned that Genesis was in a coma, so I went back to Peony Estates to try to find Casey. I brought her back with me to the hospital, but we got there and Genesis had died. We were too late. It was terrible.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez, for walking us through that night. I'd like to shift a bit and talk about the defendant, Harper Martini. Do you know her?
I do. She's Casey's mom and she owns Peony Estates.
Have you ever seen the defendant and Ms. Petrillo fight?
I have. They fought a lot.
Objection, Your Honor, to character evidence. May I be heard?
Sure.
Any testimony about Ms. Martini fighting with Mr. Petrillo in the past serves no basis in this case other than to prove propensity, to show that because Ms. Martini may have fought with Genesis Petrillo in the past, she would be more inclined to poison Genesis on June 7th.
Ms. Grant.
Yes, Your Honor. We're not using this testimony for a character purpose, for its propensity. That previous Ms. Martini fought with Mr. Petrillo, and so that's what they did on the night of June 7th. Your Honor, we're using this to demonstrate motive, which we're permitted to do under Midland's Rule of Evidence 404B2.
I'm going to allow it. I'll overrule the objection and allow the question. Go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Rodriguez, are you familiar with a voicemail from May 12th of 2019?
I am. After Genesis died, Casey showed me a voicemail that he had sent to Miss Martini that day.
Your Honor, at this time, my co-counsel is displaying what's already in evidence as Exhibit 8.
Can you make it a little bigger?
Your Honor, we'll zoom in just a moment.
Okay.
Ms. Rodriguez, is this a transcript of that voicemail?
It is.
And what did Mr. Petrillo say to the defendant in this voicemail?
That, well, Mr. Petrillo said that he and Casey were moving to France right after the wedding, and that Miss Martini would never see her daughter again.
So that's about a month before the rehearsal dinner. When was the next time that you saw them?
On the day of the rehearsal dinner, I saw them a bunch of times. That morning, I heard Miss Martini yell that Genesis should just leave or she would make him disappear.
Thank you, Ms. Fenyo. We can take that down. Ms. Rodriguez, when did you next see the defendant?
Maybe an hour before the rehearsal dinner, I saw her carrying this canister of pesticide, so I asked her what it was for.
Objection, Your Honor, to a lack of foundation on how Ms. Rodriguez would know that what Ms. Martini was carrying was in fact pesticides.
Ms. Grant.
Yes, Your Honor. We believe that this is a rationally based perception allowable under MRE 701.
Why don't you ask her? I'm going to sustain the objection. You might want to ask a little foundational question, though.
No problem, Your Honor.
Mhm.
Ms. Rodriguez, could you tell what the defendant was carrying?
I could. It was this canister that said pesticide on it, so I figured it was a canister of pesticide.
And what did the defendant tell you that it was for?
She said that it was for Genesis because Genesis was such a pest. Then she said she was kidding, she guessed.
Did you see them interact at the dinner itself?
Like I said, she made a toast to Genesis.
Well, after you went to the hospital that night, Ms. Rodriguez, did you speak to the defendant again?
I did. The next morning, while I was at Peony Estates looking for Casey, I ran into Miss Martini first.
And what did the defendant say to you?
Before I could say anything, before I could even tell her that Genesis was sick, she looked me dead in the eyes and said, Genesis got poisoned? Oh no, guess we'll have to cancel the wedding. I have no idea how she knew Genesis was poisoned.
Thank you for your time today, Ms. Rodriguez. Your Honor, nothing further at this time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Horowitz, would you like to cross-examine this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Would you like me to wait a moment or
Yes, please.
should I proceed?
Give us a moment. Have at it.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Rodriguez. My name is Dylan Horowitz, and I have some questions for you on behalf of Harper Martini.
Okay.
I first just want to clear up some details about when you called the ambulance for Mr. Petrillo.
Sure.
You were helping Mr. Petrillo when he lost consciousness.
I was trying to help him, but I couldn't, so I called 911.
And you called 911 at 12:42 a.m. on June 8th. Is that right?
Yes, that sounds right.
Now, you didn't leave your friend alone before the ambulance arrived, did you?
Not after I called 911, no.
So you can be sure that Mr. Petrillo didn't consume any more alcohol after you called 911.
Absolutely, yes. I was with him the whole time.
Thank you for clearing that up, Ms. Rodriguez. I want to talk now about earlier in the night at that rehearsal dinner. You were there when Miss Martini gave Mr. Petrillo that 2019 Cara wine.
It was during the toasts section of the evening around 10 p.m.
Right, it was when she was making a toast.
That's right.
She got everyone's attention.
She did, yes, she used a microphone.
And only when everyone was watching did Miss Martini give Mr. Petrillo that wine.
I couldn't say if every single person was watching, but most of us were looking at her.
Well, let's talk about what happened with that bottle. First, Miss Martini poured a glass for Mr. Petrillo.
She did.
Miss Martini's daughter, Casey Soto, was sitting next to Mr. Petrillo when she poured that glass.
I believe when she poured the glass, Genesis was standing next to her, actually, on this sort of stage area.
But Mr. Petrillo brought that glass back to the table,
That's right.
quickly drank that glass.
In a couple of minutes, yes.
And then after drinking that glass, Mr. Petrillo poured another one.
He did.
Mr. Petrillo offered a glass to everyone at that table.
Yes, but no one but me accepted.
Now, Miss Martini didn't stop Mr. Petrillo from offering anyone else a glass, right?
No, she didn't have to. No one really took him up on the offer.
Well, like you said, you took one of those glasses.
That's right, but I didn't end up drinking any of the wine.
Well, when you took that glass, you didn't see Miss Martini run over to the table to stop you from drinking it.
Not that I saw, no.
Miss Martini never told you to not drink that wine.
She didn't need to. I didn't end up drinking it.
Miss Rodriguez, you actually did take a sip of that wine, isn't that right?
I took a sip, but I spit it out. I didn't swallow it.
And so when you took that sip, Miss Martini didn't do anything, right?
Not that I saw, no.
Well, I want to talk about what you saw Mr. Petrillo do throughout that night.
Sure.
You mentioned earlier to Miss Grant that you saw him drink that Cara wine. But that's not all you saw him drink that night, was it?
I also saw him have a flute of champagne.
And in addition to that champagne, you saw him drink from his flask.
I saw him take a sip, but I couldn't even tell you what was in it.
After a while, you started to worry about Mr. Petrillo.
I did, yes, after he'd had a few glasses of the wine.
You asked him if he wanted to go upstairs and rest.
I did, yes, I thought he might want to make an early night the night before his wedding.
He said no to you.
That's right, he wanted to keep enjoying the party.
He said that he wanted to keep drinking.
That's what he said, although I didn't really see him drink after that.
Well, let's talk about what you saw. Instead of going upstairs to rest, you saw Mr. Petrillo go to the bar.
We went together, yes.
And Mr. Petrillo ordered tequila shots.
Yes, but I didn't see him drink any.
Well, you say you didn't see him drink any, but you weren't watching him that whole time.
Not like a hawk, no, but I was right next to him the whole time at the bar.
Well, you were focused on a conversation with someone else.
That's right, I was talking to my friend who was also right next to us.
When you looked back over at Mr. Petrillo, he was slumped over in his chair.
He was, yes.
And you don't know how much Mr. Petrillo drank when you were not watching him.
I don't think he drank anything.
Bringing you back to my question, you don't know how much he drank when you were not watching him.
I couldn't say for sure how much or if at all.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Grant, do you have anything on redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, permission to proceed.
Go ahead.
Ms. Rodriguez, opposing counsel asked you a few questions about what Mr. Petrillo drank that night. When was the last time you saw Mr. Petrillo take a drink?
It would have been 11:45 at the latest. After that, we were at the bar, and like I said, I didn't see him drink anything there.
And over the course of what period of time did Mr. Petrillo consume those drinks?
Oh, it was throughout the whole rehearsal dinner, which was pretty long, maybe 5 or 6 hours.
Thank you for your time today, Ms. Rodriguez. Your Honor, nothing further. And if there's no recross, I'd ask that Ms. Rodriguez be excused.
Let me check on recross first. How's that sound? Mr. Horowitz, do you have anything on recross limited to what we just heard?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you. In that case, the witness is in fact excused. Thank you very much. Give us a moment. Does the plaintiff have another witness?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the plaintiff calls Sam Arnold. May I proceed?
I can't see from my screen. Mr. or Ms. Arnold, I can't see from my screen because it's really small. You've been previously sworn, and I'd ask you to stay centered on your camera and keep your voice up so that everybody in the Zoom world can see and hear you. Thank you very much. Mr. John Mohammed, go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Sam Arnold. I'm a caterer here in Midlands, and well, I was meant to be the caterer for Genesis Petrillo's wedding to Casey Soto back in June of 2019.
How'd you get started as a caterer, Mr. Arnold?
Well, it all began when I was a child. I started watching Gordon Ramsay on the telly when I was about 12 years old. And let me tell you, I loved him. Next thing you know, I was in culinary school in the UK. But the food wasn't very good in the UK, so I moved to France. And then I couldn't cook the food in France, so I came to Midlands. And finally, everybody loved my food, so I started a catering business.
All right, Mr. Arnold. Do you know the defendant, Harper Martini?
Yes, Ms. Martini runs Peony Estates. She first hired me to cater a party all the way back in 2016, and I've been catering events for her ever since. In fact, her daughter's wedding rehearsal was one of the last in-person events I got to cater.
Let's talk about June 7th of 2019, the day of that rehearsal dinner. Were you at Peony Estates that day?
Of course. I stopped by late in the morning and I went straight to the kitchen to get the food prepared.
Did you see the defendant that morning?
Yes, I did. Harper was in the kitchen that morning working with some bottles of wine.
Did the defendant tell you who those bottles were for?
Harper said they were gifts for the wedding party, and then she instructed me to bring them out at the end of the rehearsal dinner.
Did you recognize the bottles of wine that the defendant was working with?
Most of them. Almost all of the bottles Harper had in the kitchen that morning were Peony Estate's sort of house wine. It's called Horizon, but there was one bottle I had never seen before. It was labeled Cara.
Would you recognize a picture of that bottle, the Cara, if I showed it to you?
Yes, I think I would.
Your Honor, at this time, my co-counsel is screen sharing a picture of Exhibit 2A and 2B. They're already in evidence.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Arnold, is this a picture of that bottle that you were just talking about?
Yes, it is.
You mentioned that you hadn't seen this bottle before. Did you ask the defendant about it?
I did. Harper told me it was a special blend that she'd been working on for months. A new blend that she told me to give to Genesis.
Did the defendant tell you anything else about this wine?
Yes, but then Harper told me that the bottle would take care of her problems forever.
Thank you. We can take those exhibits down. Now, Mr. Arnold, earlier you mentioned that the defendant instructed you to give that Cara wine to Genesis Petrillo. Did you two discuss Mr. Petrillo again?
Yes, actually, I was sort of leaving the kitchen, so I turned around to say goodbye to Harper. Well, that's when I noticed this canister labeled pesticide on the counter. So I asked Harper, what's that canister of pesticide for? And she looks at me and says, to kill pests like Genesis. And I sort of just stared at her. And then she goes, just kidding, of course, as if that made it any better.
Okay, Mr. Arnold, you told us what you saw and heard before that rehearsal dinner. Now let's move to the dinner itself. Did it go as planned?
Well, obviously what happened afterwards was a tragedy. But the dinner itself went by just fine. Towards the end of the night, I got all those wine bottles Harper wanted to give the guests ready so we could finish things off.
And did you give that bottle of Cara wine to Mr. Petrillo like the defendant had instructed?
Yes, Harper stood up to give a toast and I came in with the bottle.
Did you hear the defendant tell Mr. Petrillo anything about that wine?
Yes. Harper stood up and announced to the whole wedding party that that Cara wine was just for Genesis.
What did you do after the defendant made that announcement?
I mean, I brought the wine to Genesis. And then Harper said that Genesis should drink the wine alone.
Did you hear the defendant tell any of the other guests to drink their wine alone?
When I gave the other bottles of wine to the other guests, Harper didn't say anything of the sort.
And after Mr. Petrillo received that bottle, did you ever see him again?
No, I went home soon after. By the next morning, Genesis had already passed away.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Arnold. Nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Okay,
Cross-examination, Your Honor.
sure, just a moment, Mr. Wilson.
Of course.
Have at it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Arnold. My name's Michael Wilson, and I just have some more questions for you on behalf of Harper Martini.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wilson. If I can be of any help, just go ahead and ask.
Well, let's get straight into what you mentioned to Mr. Jah Muhammad a couple minutes ago. Now, you said you saw Miss Martini in the kitchen and some pesticides were on the counter, correct?
Right, there was a canister of pesticide on the counter.
And you said that you saw the car of wine in the same kitchen.
That's right.
But Mr. Arnold, I just want to clarify. That car of wine, it was a corked bottle of wine, correct?
That's right. By the time I saw it, the wine was already corked.
And you never saw anyone tamper with that bottle of car of wine.
I wasn't really watching the bottle, so I couldn't be sure, but I didn't see anything.
You never saw anyone uncork that bottle.
Other than me, when I pulled the glass out, no, I didn't.
And you never saw Miss Martini pour pesticides into that bottle of wine.
No, again, all I know is what Harper told me the pesticide was for.
Now, like you mentioned on direct examination, you gave that bottle of wine to Mr. Petrillo.
Yeah, I did.
And I just want to break that down. So Miss Martini announced she was making a toast.
That's right, yes.
She grabbed the microphone.
Yeah,
She brought Mr. Petrillo up to the front of the room.
that's right. It was a speech in front of everybody.
So in front of everybody, that's when you gave Mr. Petrillo the bottle of car wine.
That's right. Everybody was receiving bottles of wine.
And you mentioned something on direct examination. I wrote it down. You said that Miss Martini said that Mr. Petrillo should drink this bottle of wine alone, correct?
That's right.
But then Miss Martini actually instructed you to open that bottle of wine.
She did. She told me to pour a glass for Genesis, and so I obliged.
So in front of everyone, Miss Martini poured Mr. Petrillo a glass of that wine.
That's right. Just Mr. Petrillo.
And Mr. Arnold, you know that Mr. Petrillo was drinking that evening.
I can't be sure. I actually don't try to monitor my guests' drinking. I just know that I served him a single glass of champagne.
Well, he drank champagne,
Yes, that's right.
and you gave him the bottle of car wine.
That's right, but I didn't see him drink it. I left right afterwards.
So you left right afterwards, correct?
That's right, at about 10:15 p.m.
So you don't know what else Mr. Petrillo might have drinking after 10:15 p.m.
That's right. If I wasn't there, I'd have no way of knowing.
And you don't know how much else Mr. Petrillo drank that evening.
I suppose not.
Thank you for your time today, Mr. Arnold. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Anything I redirect, Mr. John Muhammad?
No redirect examination, Your Honor. We just asked that Mr. Arnold be excused.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arnold. You are excused. And if you give us a moment, we'll be right with you. Does the plaintiff have any further witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the plaintiff calls Dr. Kwan.
Dr. Kwan,
Permission to proceed?
stand by, please. Dr. Kwan, you've been previously sworn. I want you to keep your voice up so that everybody in the Zoom world can hear you. Stay centered on your camera so everybody in the Zoom world can see you. You may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor.
Have at it.
Good afternoon, doctor. Could you introduce yourself to the court?
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Jimin Kwan.
Where do you practice, doctor?
Currently, I'm the chief emergency physician at River Valley Hospital. It's right here in Midlands.
And what's your medical background?
Well, I majored in biology at Georgia Tech, and I loved it so much I decided to go to med school at UNC Chapel Hill. After that, I completed a residency in emergency medicine and a fellowship in medical toxicology, both at Emory.
Let's talk about your work in today's case. How'd you get involved?
I performed 2 roles in today's case. First, I treated Mr. Petrillo when he was in the ER prior to his death. And second, I determined the cause of his death and certified his death certificate.
Let's go through each of the roles that you performed, starting with what you did as Mr. Petrillo's treating physician. When did Mr. Petrillo come into the ER? On June 8th, 2019.
He was brought in around 1 a.m.
And can you tell the members of the jury what his condition was like at the ER when he arrived?
Of course. He was slurring his speech and vomiting, so I admitted him. I also ordered some preliminary blood testing, toxicology testing, and I conducted a full physical exam before those test results came back.
Now, what did your examination of Mr. Petrillo show?
I noticed that Mr. Petrillo's pupils were contracting and his pulse was slowed down. He was also experiencing muscle spasms, wheezing, and excessive tearing.
Doctor.
Improper opinion. May I be heard?
Sure, go ahead.
Now, pursuant to Rule 702, specifically Rule 702C, an expert witness must show that their statements and opinions are the product of reliable principles and methods. Now, we haven't heard anything about the methodology that Dr. Kwan used when treating Genesis Petrillo or coming to her conclusions today.
Response, Your
Counsel?
Honor?
Yep.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, today, Dr. Kwan was called to testify in 2 different capacities. First, as Mr. Petrillo's treating physician, and second, as an expert in toxicology. So far, Dr. Kwan has only testified as to her role as a treating physician. In other words, what she saw and what she did. She hasn't elicited any expert opinions or conclusions, and thus Rule 702 and the prongs within actually don't apply here yet. Because of that, Your Honor, this is admissible testimony.
Based on that, I'm going to overrule the objection. It looks like at the moment she's just testifying on what she saw, but she gets a little further in. Mr. Huntley, you may want to renew your objection if necessary.
Yes, Your
Go
Honor.
ahead. Go ahead,
Yes,
Ms.
Your
Huntley.
Honor. Doctor, did you get a chance to finish your answer on what that examination showed?
As I was saying, Mr. Petrillo was experiencing a number of symptoms.
And what did you do based on those symptoms?
Well, I began to suspect that he'd been exposed to a toxin, so I started administering an antidote.
Objection, Your Honor. I would re-raise my objection to an improper opinion, as Dr. Kwan just came to the conclusion that because she witnessed the statement, those symptoms, she concluded or believed that Genesis Petrillo had been exposed to a toxin.
Okay.
May
Go
I
ahead,
respond, Your
Mrs.
Honor?
Pena. Go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Kwan was just saying that because she suspected a toxin, that's why she administered an antidote. She's still describing her course of treatment and action in treating Mr. Petrillo. When she starts listing testimony about her actual opinions and conclusions in today's case, which she eventually will, we will be laying foundation for the prongs of 702. However, again, she hasn't actually elicited a formal expert opinion or conclusion yet.
At the moment, I'm going to overrule the objection. I think we're skating pretty close to the edge of the ice at the moment, but we may be hearing from you again shortly, Mr. Huntley. I'm not sure.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. Doctor, did you get a chance to finish your answer?
As I was saying, I administered an antidote, but unfortunately, Mr. Petrillo fell into a coma and later stopped breathing. I called his time of death at 9:27 a.m.
Let's move to that second role you performed in today's case, determining Mr. Petrillo's cause of death. How did you go about doing that?
I used a method known as differential diagnosis. It's one I use in almost all of my cases.
Can you tell the members of the jury what differential diagnosis is?
Of course. Differential diagnosis is a method of taking the data from lab work to corroborate the findings from medical examinations. It's the standard method in the field of emergency medicine for reaching diagnostic conclusions.
Did you apply it reliably, doctor?
I did.
How did you use differential diagnosis in today's case?
I started by reviewing those toxicology reports I'd ordered for Mr. Petrillo. Essentially, this was to confirm that Mr. Petrillo's cause of death was consistent with exposure to a toxin, as I'd suspected.
Your Honor, at this time, my co-counsel is displaying Exhibit 6, a pre-admitted copy of Mr. Petrillo's toxicology reports. Doctor, what did these reports find?
The reports found that Mr. Petrillo's blood and stomach contents were both positive for isofenphos. Now that's a common organophosphate pesticide.
You just mentioned the word organophosphate. Can you tell the members of the jury what that is?
Certainly. Organophosphates are a type of chemical compound usually found in commercial pesticides. As an ER doctor, though, I see them most often in patients who've been exposed through household products, things like pet flea medications and flame retardants.
Your Honor, at this time, my co-counsel is displaying Exhibit 7, a pre-admitted copy of Mr. Petrillo's death certificate. Doctor, what did you conclude was Mr. Petrillo's ultimate cause of death?
I concluded that Mr. Petrillo's cause of death was a respiratory failure due to organophosphate poisoning.
Did you ever consider alcohol poisoning as a potential cause of death for Mr. Petrillo?
I did initially. Some of Mr. Petrillo's initial symptoms were consistent with both alcohol and organophosphate poisoning, but I was able to rule that out.
How were you able to rule out alcohol poisoning as a potential cause of death?
A number of reasons. First, Mr. Petrillo's blood alcohol concentration was 0.16, which is significantly lower than the required threshold for a fatal alcohol poisoning. Secondly, while the initial symptoms were consistent with both alcohol and organophosphate poisoning, only Mr. Petrillo's later symptoms were consistent with organophosphate poisoning.
Let's talk a little bit more about Mr. Petrillo's official cause of death, organophosphate poisoning. It says here that Mr. Petrillo most likely ingested organophosphates through contaminated wine he drank on June 7. How were you able to determine that, doctor?
Based on my review of Ms. Rodriguez's report, I know that Mr. Petrillo consumed wine from a bottle of Peony Estates' Cara wine around 10 p.m. on June 7th. Now, this was corroborated by the toxicology report, which found that Mr. Petrillo's stomach contents included liquid, predominantly wine, which contained pesticide.
Did you find any evidence that a bottle of Cara wine had pesticides in it?
I did. I reviewed a toxins analysis for a bottle of Cara wine.
Your Honor, at this time, my co-counsel is displaying Exhibit 10, a pre-admitted copy of the toxins analysis of that Cara wine bottle. Dr. Kwan, what did this analysis find?
It found that the bottle of Cara wine was contaminated with isofenphos. Now, that's the same kind of pesticide I found in Mr. Petrillo's blood and his stomach contents.
Thank you, Dr. Kwan. Your Honor, at this time, I have no further questions.
Okay. Just a second, Mr. Huntley. We'll be right with you.
Of course, Your Honor.
Okay, I'm guessing you'd like to cross-examine this witness. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have at it.
Of course. Good afternoon, Dr. Kwan.
Good afternoon.
My name is Adrian Huntley. I have some more questions for you on behalf of Harper Martini.
Of course. Nice to meet you, sir.
It's nice to meet you as well. Now, I'd like to jump right in with your conclusion. You think that Genesis Petrillo passed away as a result of ingesting a pesticide?
That's my expert conclusion in today's case. Yes.
And part of the reason you think this is because you found traces of pesticide in Mr. Petrillo's system?
That's right. The toxicology testing found that Mr. Petrillo had ingested a severe quantity of pesticide.
But doctor, you can't actually tell us the amount of pesticide found in Mr. Petrillo's system.
That's right. We currently don't have medical tests that allow us to determine a specific quantity, but I know from a binary test we run that it was a severe organophosphate poisoning.
But doctor, that's a yes to my question. You can't tell us the amount of pesticide found in Mr. Petrillo's system.
Right. I can tell you the degree of poisoning, but not the specific amount.
Now, initially, you didn't think that Genesis Petrillo was suffering from pesticide poisoning at all.
That's right. I initially suspected it was alcohol poisoning, which is far more common.
Let's talk about why you might have suspected that. Now, you're aware that Genesis Petrillo had been drinking on the night of June 7th.
Yes, that's what Ms. Rodriguez informed me of when they came into my ER.
In fact, you know he drank a lot that night.
I couldn't tell you a precise number of drinks he'd consumed, but Ms. Rodriguez indicated that he had been drinking.
Well, when Mr. Petrillo came into the ER, he appeared severely intoxicated.
That's right.
You could smell alcohol in his breath.
I could, yes.
He was exhibiting several symptoms of alcohol poisoning.
Right. His initial symptoms were consistent with alcohol poisoning.
So later that evening, you tested Genesis Petrillo's blood alcohol content.
I did at around 2:58 a.m.
And you found that he had a BAC of 0.16.
That's correct.
Now, you'd agree with me that a BAC of 0.16, that's in the high risk level.
That's correct. It is.
I just want to make sure we get the timeline right here. So as you just mentioned, you tested Genesis Petrillo's BAC around 3 a.m.
That's right.
But you know that Genesis stopped drinking sometime around midnight.
That's correct. From my review of Ms. Rodriguez's report, it would appear that Mr. Petrillo stopped drinking before midnight.
So you tested Genesis Petrillo's BAC hours after he had his last drink.
That's true.
So doctor, you'd agree with me that Genesis Petrillo's peak BAC, that could be higher than 0.16.
It could be a little bit higher, yes.
Doctor, you actually found evidence that Genesis Petrillo could have had a BAC far higher than 0.16.
That's not correct, sir.
Let's talk about that. You'd recognize the alcohol impairment chart that you provided the court in your expert report?
Certainly.
Your Honor, my co-counsel is now screen sharing what has been marked for identification as Exhibit 23. Dr. Kwan, this is the alcohol impairment chart that you provided the court.
That's right. It's from the Midlands County of Public Health.
This diagram appears fair and accurate.
Yes, it does.
It hasn't been changed or altered in any way.
It hasn't, sir.
Your Honor, the defense moves Exhibit 23 into evidence.
Any objection from the plaintiff?
No objections, Your Honor.
Admitted without objection. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Doctor, this chart describes the different symptoms of alcohol poisoning.
That's correct. The symptoms in relation to the blood alcohol concentration at which they occur.
That's right. It shows which symptoms can be caused by different BAC levels.
Exactly.
And you'd agree that Genesis Petrillo's symptoms are consistent with the BAC higher than 0.16.
They're consistent with that BAC, but I don't believe they were caused by that BAC.
Well, you'd agree that Genesis Petrillo had incontinence.
That's true.
He was vomiting heavily.
That's correct.
He was unable to walk.
That's also right.
Now, all of those symptoms are consistent with a BAC above 0.26.
That's correct.
Later that evening, Genesis Petrillo slipped into a coma.
He did, unfortunately.
No, that's
Objection, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
More prejudicial than probative under Rule 403 of the Midlands Rules of Evidence. May I be heard?
Go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, opposing counsel is talking about the symptoms that Mr. Petrillo experienced at the ER when his BAC was tested. And when his BAC was tested, it was found to be 0.16. And thus opposing counsel's attempts to analogize his symptoms to this BAC curve that are actually inconsistent with the testimony already on the record is more prejudicial than probative, and it's barred under Rule 403 of the Midlands Rules of Evidence.
Mr. Huntley, what say you?
Yes, Your Honor. Now, in order for testimony to be held out under Rule 403, its prejudicial effect must substantially outweigh any probative value. Now, right now, I'm going over the symptoms that Genesis Petrillo exhibited on the night of June, or rather the morning of June 8th, with the treating physician of Genesis Petrillo. This is cross-examination. If Dr. Kwan believes that these symptoms do not line up with Genesis Petrillo's BAC, then she can say as much.
I'm going to overrule your objection and let Mr. Huntley proceed with his cross-examination. You may further address this graph on redirect if you choose, Ms. Fenio. Thank you very much. Proceed,
Yes,
Mr.
Your Honor.
Huntley.
So, Dr. Kwan, Genesis Petrillo slipped into a coma that evening.
That's correct.
Now, that's consistent with the BAC above 0.35.
It is, although Mr. Petrillo's BAC at that point was 0.16.
Doctor, you'd agree with me that Genesis Petrillo exhibited numerous symptoms consistent with a BAC that could be fatal.
There's some degree of overlap between reported symptoms, yes, but blood alcohol concentration tests don't lie.
Doctor, I'm just looking for a yes or a no. Genesis Petrillo exhibited numerous symptoms consistent with a fatal BAC.
Technically, yes.
Thank you, Dr. Kwan. I have no further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Okay. Anything on redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, permission to proceed.
Have at it.
Dr. Kwan, on cross-examination, opposing counsel talked to you a lot about Mr. Petrillo's symptoms and its correspondence to an alcohol impairment chart. Now, when Mr. Petrillo was suffering from seizures and a coma, was his BAC consistent with what it needed to be on that chart to be alcohol poisoning?
Absolutely not. As you can see from that chart, Mr. Petrillo's BAC at the hospital was 0.16. Those more severe symptoms were consistent with organophosphate poisoning. Additionally, Mr. Petrillo was experiencing a host of symptoms entirely inconsistent with alcohol poisoning. Slowed speech, a rapid pulse, things like that are inconsistent with alcohol poisoning.
Thank you, Dr. Kwan. Your Honor, nothing further.
Okay. Mr. Huntley, anything on recross?
No recross, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you very much. Doctor, you're excused.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the plaintiff rests our case in chief, and we request a brief 5-minute recess prior to continuing on.
Sure. Hang on just a second while we do a little administrivia here.
Of course, Your Honor.
Don't want to forget who did what. Okay. Okay. Nope. So you rest and you're requesting a brief break. Timekeepers, my little clock on my computer says 1:18, which is exactly an hour since we started. Do we have time for a 5-minute break, do you think? I believe so from timekeeper. Okay, we're going to come back when my little clock on my computer says 1:23. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Sounds
Your
great, Your Honor.
How's my arithmetic? Is that correct?
Honor. I think so.
Yes,
Okay,
Your
great.
Honor.
See you then. Judges doing okay?
Yes, doing well here.
Okay, great. Monica, are you a senior judge? You have an S in front of your name.
No, it just stands for scoring judge.
Oh, okay, okay,
Not to be confused with the presiding judge, Your Honor.
okay, no problem. See you in a few minutes.
All right, thank you.